So we were reading from Subjective Evolution of Consciousness. Last time we were reading, and before we actually started reading, we had we visited like two verses from Bhagavad Gita where it was explained that as the evolutionary process of consciousness is taking place, there is a quantum step that happens when the real identity of a living entity actually shifts or changes from being completely related to external designations in the beginning or external vision to the platform of actually existing in on the conscious plane. And we studied those two verses. One of the verses was from Karma Sannyas Yoga, the other was from Dhyan Yoga, path of meditation. So this time, like, I would like to visit two more verses that are shedding light on the same transition, but from a slightly different angle of vision. So if I have your permission, then before we begin, I'd like to visit those two verses with you. So the first verse that we're going to see here is actually from Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, verse number 26. Guntraya Vibhag Yoga, which is the three divisions of material nature. And the verse goes like this. Mam chayo vyabhicaren bhakti yogena sevate sah gunan samitityetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So the translation is a person who without deviation serves me with devotion, transcends the three modes of material nature, and becomes qualified to know his internal divine identity. So this is from the perspective of actually the process and practice of Bhakti Yoga, if you see. And here that platform of existing on the pure consciousness plane is given a term for the first time. It says Brahma Bhut. Right? So it says Mam chayo vyabhicaren. So avyabhicharani bhakti. Bhakti yogena sevate. So seva is there, some bona fide service is there. And then sah gunan samitityetan. The guna, the three gunas, sato rajas tama, they are transcended, samitityetan. And the living entity actually comes to the platform of Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. This is not following yoga. This is not following karma yoga or sannyas. This is simply serving without deviation in bhakti yoga. The Brahma Bhuyaya is also termed as technically Chit Swarup Siddhi, which is the internal divine identity. Chit Swarup Siddhi. That is the technical term that is used. The other verse is in Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, verse 54, which is the concluding chapter, path of liberation, moksha yoga. And the verse is Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Na Shochati Na Kankshati Samah Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. So that is the verse. And the translation of this is the joyful hearted, enlightened soul. Thank you, Abaji. The joyful hearted, enlightened soul who has attained his divine nature neither sorrows nor desires. Seeing all beings equally, he comes to attain transcendental loving devotion for me. So we see that vision of the equanimity is again stressed over here. Samah sarveshu bhuteshu. And in the verse that we read last time, it was Pandita Samadarshina. So the same thing is here, but here is saying the joyful hearted. That this joy is from doing away with the negative of birth and death, attaining to one's own real identity, pure consciousness, doing away with the upadhis, the external designations, sarvopadhi vinirmuktam, right? Tat paratvena nirmalam. And this is Brahma Bhut platform.
Prabhuji, I have a question for you.
Yes, please.
Just for the benefit of ordinary people, especially those coming from the Indic background, who has not formally studied Sanskrit. The word bhoot is ill understood. So for the benefit of everybody, could you kindly indicate the meaning of bhoot, the root word bhoot?
So here in if you see
Bhoot means past, right?
well, that also, but here the actual you can say the real meaning is is existence. You can say.
Exactly. So there's got two meanings.
Yes.
Right.
So if you see, it really boils down to existence. Sarva bhutatma or sarva bhuteshu, all living, all existing.
Okay.
And so Brahma Bhut. Now Bhut is used as a negative also for the wandering souls, ghosts.
Yeah.
And Bhut is also Bhut, Vartaman and Bhavishya.
Yes.
Those are
That.
the past tense, present and future tense. So it is there also. So there are several connotations, but if you really look at as Arun Prabhu was saying, Bhut actually means existence, living, conscious.
The essence of living or consciousness.
That is what.
Which is really consciousness. And that is the meaning of bhoot.
Yeah. That's what it means.
So it depends where you are using, right? And how you are using it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Contextually, you have to be aware of how it is being used. Because if you want to take it out of context, then anything can be taken out of context, right?
Yes.
So
the word Brahma Bhut, thus coming from Indian context, properly understood. It is not past tense of Brahma or anything like that. It
no.
is the existence, consciousness, which is at or beyond Brahma.
Okay.
Correct. That is Brahma Bhut. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. So when one reaches that stage, we are told is Prasannatma, na shokati, na shochati, na kankshati. There is no lamentation, there is no desire, there is no hankering. And one has done away with the negative of birth and death. The cycle of birth and death has been broken. and one has come to their Chid Swarup. They fully understand as Vigyan, not as Gyan, as Vigyan, that we have nothing to do with this external world, this floating world of outer experience. We are actually denizens of this plane, the conscious plane. That is Brahmabhut, as explained by the masters. So, with this orientation, now when we go to continue our session, it will make even more sense, because we are audacious to delve into these topics. These topics are very high. Only by the mercy of Om Vishnupad, Śrīla Bhakti Sundar, Govind Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāj, and the Vaishnavas, we are able to do this together. Otherwise, this is something which is very, very high. So here we will pick up from where we left off. आबा जी, उस पे से कुछ गिर रहा है. Okay. So here, now this is Param Guru Maharaj. So we begin from here. Param Guru Maharaj is saying, before the First World War, I was a student of law in the university. In my senior year, I studied philosophy under a professor named Mr. Stevenson. He was a German scholar, but during the war he took Indian citizenship. His class dealt with the ontology and psychology. Professor Stevens' language was very simple, and he used fine arguments to make his point. He gave 4 arguments against atheism, one of which I find very useful. Consciousness is the starting point of everything. Whatever you say presupposes consciousness. Any statement presupposes consciousness. If we examine the fossil, what do we see? It is black, it is hard, it has some smell, some attributes. But what are these things? These are all different stages of consciousness. Without the help of consciousness, no assertion can be made. No assertion is possible at all. One may say that the fossil is the most elemental substance. But a fossil means what? Some color, sensation, hardness, taste. But the background is consciousness. After everything is analyzed, we will find that it is an idea. This is Berkeley's theory. Everything is an idea in the ocean of consciousness. Just as an iceberg floats in the salt ocean, so the fossil is floating in the conscious ocean. Ultimately, everything, whatever we can assert, whatever is within the world of our experience, is floating like an iceberg in the ocean of consciousness. This point can never be refuted. I have had personal experience of this. When I was 23, I had some deep and natural indifference to the world. At that time, I had an experience of the reality of consciousness. I felt the material world floating on consciousness just as cream floats on milk. Conscious reality is much deeper than the apparent reality of our present experience. The world of experience is like cream floating on milk, which is the mind. This physical world is only the visible portion of reality floating over the mental world. I felt this myself. When there is a huge quantity of milk, the cream that floats over the milk and covers it is very meager. In the same way, I could feel at that time that this physical world is only a meager portion of reality, and that the subtle world, which is at present in the background, is far more vast. The mental world is a huge and vast reality, and the physical world is a small cover over that mental world. Whatever can be perceived by the eye, the ear, the tongue, the nose, and skin, any of the external senses is only a covering of reality.
Should I?
Yeah. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Mahārāj says, Na te vidu swarth gatim hi Vishnum durasraya ye bahir arthamanina. We are making too much of the covering of reality. We are devoting our minds to the external coating, bahir arthamanina. But we do not dive deep into the eternal substance. If only we were to dive deep into reality, there we would find Vishnu. The most peaceful substance is within. But it is covered, just as milk is covered by cream. And we are making much of that cover. The real substance is within, just as fruit is covered by its skin. And we are making much of that, ignoring the very substance which the cover is protecting. The primary step in the search for truth is to penetrate the covering and find the knower within, and then begin our analysis. What is he? Is he an atom like an atomic particle of dust? Or is he a fantastic atom in the conscious plane? At first, we must approach reality in this way. There is the knower and the unknown, the inquirer and the inquired. Try to find yourself. Then, gradually, you will come to know that you are the soul, the particle of consciousness within. And just as you are spirit covered by matter, the whole world is also like that. The spiritual reality within is covered. Upon realizing yourself as spirit soul, you will be able to see that everything is a part of consciousness. Within the world of consciousness, worlds of different sorts of experience are floating. In the conscious sea, the sun, the moon, trees, stones, human beings, our friends, and our enemies are all floating. As we approach the spiritual plane, we will find it to be nearer to our real self. And in this way, we will see that matter is far, far away, but the soul is near. Try to conceive of reality along these lines. Soul, spirit, consciousness is nearer to the soul, and you are a child of that soil. Matter is far, far away. But the interrupting planes are so close together that we don't see the nature of spiritual reality. Just as if you put your hand over your eye, you can't see the hand. But if the hand is only 1 foot away, we can see it very clearly. Sometimes what is very close we cannot see. I may be able to see so many things, but I cannot see myself. Although the Buddhists and other atheists argue that consciousness is a material thing, I say that there is no material thing. If I am to answer the question of whether or not consciousness is produced from matter, then I shall say that nothing is material. Whatever we feel is only a part of consciousness. Everything is an idea. We are concerned only with consciousness from the beginning to the end of our experience. Beyond that, we cannot go. Everything is an idea. The stone, the tree, the house, the body, all are ideas. The plane of consciousness is very much closer to us than we perceive. And what is shown as a particular thing is far away. We are involved only with ideas. We can't go outside that. Everything within our experience is a part of our mind. I want to take a little pause here, and I want to put this question for discussion out here to the panel is, what do you feel about Param Guru Maharaj saying that we are dealing with only ideas as we approach the plane of conscious reality?
The way I understand, and I'm a recent student, the current understanding, and you can guess I'm a materialistic in terms of by training, but still it gives some insight to reality, and there's no denying of the fact or conclusion that the intrinsic observational ability to see the environment comes from this intrinsic property of the Chaitana, consciousness, to be self-aware and illuminating and projecting whatever idea it has. And as I mentioned earlier also, using our senses, if we see anything, if we get any idea in the material sense, it is only coming because the consciousness is interacting, is entangling or wanting to entangle with the so-called material plane. And material plane shows up the way consciousness wants it to. Very, very important part is in the last, as I mentioned, I think in the last few months, the experimental verification at the quantum level that the world is not objective, meaning the world is not constant. And different observers are seeing that constant in their own perspective. No. The current understanding is the world is behaving as the consciousness wants to behave. The same object seen by two different observers experimentally will show up depending on what the observers want to see. So the same thing, same object, the same quantum state of a particle would show up in state X, and the same object would show up in state Y, just because the two observers want to observe it. So that is only a minute reflection at the quantum level. But even if you meditate, and I used to meditate a lot, and I would say still meditate to some extent. When you meditate, you observe self, you meditate inside, and you try to peel away the notion of self that is meditating on. And it very soon comes to the point that, well, whatever that thing is, whatever that thing that I call myself as an observer, does not require external validation. It is aware, conscious on its own. That means able to see and perceive and project intrinsically without any external support. And I'm so happy that you're reading this, and I'm able to hear Guru Mahārāj's word, Param Guru Mahārāj's words. And I can self-validate with my own experience. What he's saying, I am able to sense in whatever little understanding I have. But there is I don't need anything else. I know it is true.
Excellent. Yes, Anilji, please go ahead.
The point which you made, Arunji, I think I can recall that famous experiment, right? So the summary is that it's physical world, right? The so-called physical world is projecting to us, right? The way the consciousness want us to perceive it, right? That means the only thing which is real is consciousness, and even the physical world is just the way the consciousness wants us to be perceived, right? Those feelings, right? That means that is totally false, right? Is that correct, right?
It is correct, and yet at the same time, I also come to the similar conclusion as we talked last week, that this physical world is also sympathetic. Somehow is playing along with what my consciousness wants to project. And thus, one can understand that even this physical world, there is a Maya Devi, and she is making it come real the way I want to see it.
Now, I wanna interject at this point, because I think it's kind of worth highlighting. Let's just read one more time what Param Guru Mahārāj said in the last this paragraph. He says, although the Buddhists and other atheists argue that consciousness is a material thing, I say that there is no material thing. If I am to answer the question of whether or not consciousness is produced from matter, then I shall say that nothing is material. Whatever we feel is only a part of consciousness.
Beautiful. Yes.
So now, I also want you to hear this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam that I have, which corroborates what Param Guru Mahārāj said. This verse reads, Vikara khyayamano pi pratyag atmanam antara na nirupyo aste anurapi syad chet chitsama atmavad. Okay. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto, 4th chapter, verse number 29. And what does this say? Although perceived, the transformation of even a single atom of material nature has no ultimate definition without reference to the Supreme Soul. To be accepted as factually existing, something must possess the same quality as pure spirit. Eternal, unchanging existence, aka consciousness. So every atom, anurapi, anu means what? Anu means atom. Chitsama means what?
Conscious.
So every atom, every unit of existence, even in the material sense, is not without consciousness. So what Param Guru Mahārāj says, you can see, that is the ultimate truth.
In other words, there is no dull matter, or there is no separate thing called matter. It is simply an extension of consciousness.
And
That is the point.
and
which you were trying-
the
you were
reason,
trying to convey.
yes, the thing is, why don't we see it that way is because of our angle of vision, our adjustment. That is why we are not able to see that. When it says Pandita Samadarshina, Brahma Bhuyaya Prasannatma, when all of these things, their angle has properly adjusted and they are able to see that consciousness. Does that make more sense?
Absolutely, sir. Yes.
So, now, let's get back to Param Guru Mahārāj. His last sentence was, everything within our experience is a part of our mind. Okay, now there's a question which has been posted to him. The Puranas say that there are 8.4 million species of life. Are they only ideas? Śrīdhar Mahārāj, all ideas. Consciousness is always in the primary position. Yet these ideas are real because they are also originally present in the spiritual reality, Vrindavan. Nothing is eliminated in our conception of reality. Everything is harmonious. Everything has its proper position. Nothing is to be eliminated. The only thing necessary is harmony. Only our outlook, our angle of vision needs to be changed. Hare Krishna. But in order to have that kind of vision, we must give up being self-centered. Both exploitation and renunciation must be given up. These two things cause this hallucination. Everything has its contribution to the service of the Supreme Center. And if we can understand that, we become free from this relative world. The material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. There is undesirability here. from Brahma, who holds the highest position in this universe, to the lowest creature, Brahma Bhuvana Loka. Everyone is prone to misconception. On the other hand, everything in Vrindavan contributes towards the pastimes of Radha Govinda. Everything in Vrindavan is Krishna conscious. Every tree, creeper, and shrub. How can they be useless or ordinary shrubs and creepers? Uddhava is the greatest devotee of Krishna, and he aspires to take birth as a creeper or a shrub in Vrindavan. What then is the value of the shrubs and creepers of Vrindavan? Should we think that Uddhava's aspiration is imaginary or theoretical, with no practical value? I want to pause here because this, I think, is really important. Does anyone know the background of this? What Param Guru Mahārāj is indicating over here? Would you like to say, Chinmay Prabhu, a little bit?
Well, I'm just hearing Śrīla Mahārāj talk about the Brihad Bhagavatamrita.
Yes.
Where Narad Goswami travels to discuss with different devotees their level of devotion. And when he comes to Uddhava, that's the comment that Uddhava made, that, well, Krishna first says to him, you are more dear to me than my own self, more dear than Lakshmi Deva, more dear than Shiva, more dear than Baladev, more dear than Lord Brahma. You, Uddhava, are more dear than my own self.
Right.
But then when Uddhava goes to Vrindavan and sees the gopis, his pride is demolished. And he sees true devotion. And he wants to enter into that plane of existence, even as a blade of grass, as a shrub.
Excellent. Thank you, Chinmay Prabhu. Let's look at this a little more finely, what Chinmay Prabhu gave us. So this is, Param Guru Mahārāj is alluding to Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Śrīla Sanatana Goswami. And devotion to Krishna is traced over there by the Sutradhar, Śrīla Narad Dev. So Narad Dev is going from person to person, place to place, trying to trace the development and the intensity of devotion to Krishna. So in that entire Shrankhala, or that entire series of going to various places, he goes to the Pandavas. No, before that he goes to Lord Hanuman, and he starts praising Lord Hanuman. So Lord Hanuman points him, saying that my devotion is really meager compared to the Pandavas. Look at them, they're friends with Krishna, and you must go to them, they're really exalted. So then he goes to the Pandavas, and then he starts talking to them, and then the Pandavas say, well, what you say, Śrīla Naradev, we'd like you to look at Sri Uddhava, because we are envious of him. He's so close to the Lord. And as Chinmoy Prabhu said, the Lord really values his companionship. So, if you allow me, Chinmoy Prabhu, I'd like to read Param Guru Mahārāj talking about this in levels of God realization from the Search for Sri Krishna, Reality the Beautiful. And I pick it up from where he actually, Śrīla Narad Dev, has been sent to Uddhava. So, he's now, then Narad Dev, this is Param Guru Mahārāj saying, then Narad Dev went to Uddhava and told him, Uddhava, you are the most favorite devotee of Krishna. Krishna says, Na tatha me priyattama atmayonir na shankara, na cha sankarshano na shrir, nevatma cha yatha bhavan. O Uddhava, what to speak of other devotees like Brahma, Shiva, Sankarshana or Lakshmi? You are more dear to me than my own life. You are such an intimate associate that Krishna values you more than his own life. Uddhava said, yes, of course, out of his costless benevolence. He might have said something like that, but I don't think that I am his real devotee, especially after visiting Vrindavan. All my pride has been melted by seeing those devotees. The spirit of service and the intensity of love towards Krishna that I found in the devotees in Vrindavan is unparalleled. O Devarshi, I am nowhere. Do you know that statement of mine? It is recorded in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 47th chapter, verse number 61. Asamaho charan renu dushamaham syam vrindavane kimapi gulma lataushadinam ya dustajam swajanam arja patham chahitva bhejur mukund padvim shrutibhir vramagyam. The gopis of Vrindavan gave up their husbands, children, and families who are difficult to renounce, and sacrificed even their religious principles to take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, which are sought after even by the Vedas themselves. Shrutibhir Vramagyam. Oh, grant me the fortune to take birth as a blade of grass in Vrindavan, so that I may take the dust of the lotus feet of those great souls upon my head. There I have disclosed my heart fully. The quality of love for Krishna that I found in the damsels of Vrindavan is so exalted that I could not but aspire to be born in Vrindavan as a piece of grass, so that the foot dust of those divine damsels might touch my head. So what are you saying, Devarshi? If you would like to see real devotion, real divine love, you should go to Vrindavan. Don't put us in an awkward position saying that we possess devotion to Krishna. This is rather a mockery, a foundationless utterance. I found real devotees of the Lord in Vrindavan. In this way, Sanatana Goswami tries his best to take us through the path by showing us the gradual development of devotion to Krishna. Hare Krishna, Jai Param Guru Mahārāj. So here, the point that I want you to focus on is this. Sri Uddhava, that we just read about, he is such an intimate friend of Krishna. So, this is Sakyaras, right? And the Lord himself is saying that you are more dear to me than my own very self. And he's directly conversing, associating with the Lord all the time. And on some pretext, the Lord sends him to Vrindavan. And then he goes there. And when he sees that, when he experiences that devotion, when he gets exposed to that devotion, I don't know how to translate Divyonmad. It's that divine ecstatic madness, for the lack of a better term. When he gets exposed to that, then he expresses his heart, what we read. And what is important here is that he is in Sakyaras, established. After seeing that level of devotion, what does he aspire for? He aspires to give up his position as Sakhya, in the mellow of Sakhyaras, and wants to take up creeper, Gulmalataushadi, in Vrindavan, which is Shanta. So he is ready to regress. Give up direct association for indirect association. Because rasa, we always see rasa or divine ecstasy develops from Shant, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, Madhurja. Right? He is established as Sakhya. He wants to regress to Shanta. Isn't it? And go indirect. This is the peculiarity of Vrindavan. Why? Because he is Krishna's Sakha, but not in Vrindavan. When he comes to Vrindavan and when he experiences a little bit of the level of devotion and the intensity of love for Krishna, then he is aspiring to become a creeper which is showered by the dust particles of those damsels. So he is ready to take Shantaras in Vrindavan and serve indirectly versus direct Sakhyaras outside of Vrindavan. Does that make sense, Chinmay Prabhu?
Yes. I mean, as much as we can understand it, but yes, that the level of Ras in Vrindavan is so far and above and beyond any other plane of consciousness.
So, when we say this neutrality or Shantaras, if it is in Vrindavan, it has no comparison to Shantaras outside. So just for myself, to remind myself and to share with you, I wanted to highlight this point because Param Guru Mahārāj has laid a lot of stress on this verse. And our acharyas also talk a lot about this point. So, just to remind myself and share with you, I just wanted to go over it again. Now back to Param Guru Mahārāj in the play of the Sweet Absolute, where he says, "What then is the value of the shrubs and creepers of Vrindavan? Should we think that Uddhava's aspiration is imaginary or theoretical with no practical value? Everything in Vrindavan is necessary for the pastimes of Radha Govinda. Everything in the spiritual environment has its indirect value. This is called Shantaras or passive mellow. It may be understood in this way. If a man does not harm anybody, even a fly or a mosquito, that does not mean that he is paralyzed or deceased. He is simply in a passive mood. So in Vrindavan, service may be rendered in a passive mood. The Yamuna, the trees, the birds, and the insects are absorbed in rendering service in a passive mood. How this is so can be understood by the analogy of a drama. In a drama, in the theater, an actor may play the part of a dead man. As his body is being carried, he can't say anything. He can't move. that does not mean that he is dead. Similarly, a devotee in Shantaras may assume a passive role as a creeper, a shrub, or a tree in Vrindavan in order to enhance the drama of Radha Govinda Leela. A devotee may also accept the role of a servant. He may be a king, but for the satisfaction of the Lord, he may play the part of a sweeper. While one is playing the part of a sweeper, he may perform his role so nicely that the men standing by applaud in appreciation. So the mood of servitude is also a contribution to the service of Krishna. Another example of Shanta Ras is Radha Kund. Radha Kund, the bathing place of Srimati Radharani, where Krishna enacts his pastimes of conjugal love, is considered to be the highest place in Vrindavan. The gods and devotees all praise Radha Kund. Should we think it to be an ordinary body of water? Rather, how exalted is the position of Radha Kund. Then there is Govardhan Hill. That is also a kind of pose. Apparently it is a hill. But Govardhan is worshipped as Krishna himself. He also appears as a stone, as Shaligram. He appears in the form of the deities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, O Lord, please consider me as the dust of your holy feet. Vivinnam Jiva. Foot dust is generally inanimate, but when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, consider me foot dust, the dust he speaks of is not matter. It is a unit of consciousness filled with knowledge and love. The dust of the Lord's lotus feet is the emblem of knowledge and ecstasy. In the spiritual realm, existence and knowledge is presupposed. But more than that, the souls there are points of divine love in Vrindavan and Navadip. And with the wholesome conversion of the souls of this world, everywhere we will find the kingdom of God, Krishna's kingdom. Mahaprabhu's kingdom exists. We have only lost the proper angle of vision by which to see it. We must once again acquire that vision. At present, we are in the midst of enemies, but if our angle of vision is changed, we shall think, no, I am in the midst of friends. So I'd like to pause here because it's been an hour, I know. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Prayojakacharya Orya Stotra Satarshi Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣhak Śrīdhar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāj ki jai. When we're trying with some sincerity to read and to absorb these divine, his divine words, Param Guru Maharaj and Gurudev's, time flies. I mean, time dimension is lost. But we have to get back to our material side. So we will continue this. I think it's, to me, it's really nourishing, and especially with divine personalities such as yourselves, Arun Krishna Prabhu, Chinmoy Dev Prabhu, Anil Ji, and everyone else assembled here. It's actually a lesson for me. That's how I read it. I'm a student and a backbencher at that. So
Prabhu, it is our fortune that you lead this class. I am so grateful for that, and mercy of Gurudev.
Mercy of Gurudev. If you hear and if you like and if you appreciate, it's all Gurudev. Otherwise, all the offensive part is here.
Sir, in the same rhythm as you said, right? But history is full of the cases where backbenchers have made history.
Now
Most of the renowned scientists are school kicked out, right?
Okay, you're just trying to win the argument here. That's okay. That's all right. I'll give it to you. That's all right. So let me call the Elite Kirtan Group, aka EKG. Give me a second, please.
How's the weather your side of the town, Chinmadev Prabhu?
It was actually a bit cold today. There was a lot of mist from the ocean, so it was a bit fresh. But no complaints. Very nice Santa Cruz always.
देखिए भज श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद
Bhaj Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद
Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
हरिहराय नमः कृष्ण यादवाय नमः
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha
यादवाय माधवाय केशवाय नमः
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshivaya Namaha
गोपाल गोविंद राम श्री मधुसूदन
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana
गिरिधारी गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन
Giridhara Gopinath
श्री चैतन्य नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत चंद्र
Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra
गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद
Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
जय रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ
Jaya Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath
श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दास रघुनाथ
Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath
इच्छाय गोसाई कोरी चरण वंदन
Echanu Sankoi Charanavata
जहाँ होते विघ्न नाश अभिष्ट पुराण
Jaha Murte Vignanasa Vishta Puran
इच्छाय गोसाई जार मुहि तरदास Sabara Padarenu Mora Panchagras Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanevas Jana me mora hai abhilash Ichhai gosai jai bhaja koila bas Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash Anande bolo Hari Vaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majayaman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas
Shri Guru Vaishnava Padma Koriyas
Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Narottama Das Hari Haraya Namah Krishnaya Davaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jai Gauranga Sundar Jai Gauranga Sundar Jai Gauranga Sundar Jai Gauranga Sundar
Jai Gauranga
Jai
Jai. Any volunteers for Jai Dhwani? Take it away, Anika. Take it away, please.
Bhakti Sundar Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāj ki jai.
Jai.
Om Mahārāj Bhakti Rakṣhak Dev-Goswāmī Mahārāj ki jai.
Jai.
Om Bhakti Bhakti ki jai.
Jai.
Guru Krishna Das Bhakti Mahārāj ki jai.
Jai.
Jai O Vishwanath Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Om Vishwanath Jagannath Das Bhakti Mahārāj ki jai.
Jai.
Sripanu Guru Varga ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Hari Das Thakur ki jai.
Jai.
Ananta Puri Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Baladeva Vidya Bhushan ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Notama Shamamanda Swastika Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Vrindavan Das Thakur ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Krishna Kaviraj ki jai. Sada Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Sada Shri Mahaprabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Shri Rakṣhak Gopa Gopinath Ramkund Radha Dar Govardhan ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Lakshmi Deva ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Shri Madeva ki jai.
Jai.
Bhakti Prabhupada Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Ruchi Mahani ki jai.
Jai.
Ramana ji ki jai.
Jai.
Mantra Bhagavatam Chaitanya ki jai.
Jai.
Vishwa Vaishnava Sabha ki jai.
Jai.
Akurat Machi Chaitanya Mat ki jai.
Jai.
Daddy Sikha Mat ki jai.
Jai.
Teacher Saraswat Swat Mat ki jai.
Jai.
Vishwa Kabir Sikha Mat ki jai.
Jai.
Śrīdhar Manipur ki jai.
Jai.
Puri ki jai.
Jai.
Vrindavan Sudan Dam ki jai.
Jai.
Devi Subhadra Raghunath ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Govind Puja ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Shri Shiva Gurudeva ki jai.
Jai.
Samved Nagamanil ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki jai.
Jai.
Hari Nam Sankirtan ki jai.
Jai.
Itai Gautamande
Hari Hari Bol.
Sripad Jaram Prabhu ki jai.
श्रीपाद अरुण कृष्ण प्रभु की जय, श्रीपाद चिन्मय देव की जय, संगीता जी की जय, who else? नंदरानी दीदी की जय, प्रीति विक्रम एंड अनिका फैमिली की जय, जय शिला भक्ति पावन जनार्दन महाराज की जय, जय शिला भक्ति निर्मल आचार्य महाराज की जय, श्री चैतन्य सारस्वत मठ आचार्य वृंद की जय, श्री चैतन्य सारस्वत मठ सन्यासी वृंद की जय, श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, ऑल द असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज की जय, गौर प्रेमानंद, हरि हरि बोल।
Dhanavad everyone.
धन्यवाद नंदरानी दीदी।
धन्यवाद।